And there are a lot of home sellers right now that have rented their home because rates were so low. They decided to either rent the home, turn it into an Airbnb, or wait to sell it and then went out and bought another home. And I've done this numerous times myself, where I've lived in a home a few years, rented it for a couple of years, and then sold it with the purpose of trying to take advantage of the 2 out of 5 protection. So if you occupy a primary residence 2 out of the last 5 years, you don't have to pay a capital gain presently on the net profits of the sale. Again, there are some limitations depending on the value of the property, if you're single, married, all of that. I won't get into that, but there are a lot of people that take advantage of that. They will live in it for 2 years, then rent it for 2 years, and then sell it and be able to take the cap gain. So there are a lot of people out there right now with homes that are rented, and they're deciding to sell them. And I want to talk to you, if you own a property that you're presently renting and you are thinking about selling it, I want to strongly discourage you from selling it with the tenant in the property. And I want to explain why. Number one, it is really hard to get a tenant to show the home in its best light. The tenant is inconvenienced. They don't get a financial benefit out of the sale. And there are legalities in place that prevent you from short notice showings, depending on the terms of your lease. So what ends up happening a lot of the time is you put a home on the market, you have a tenant in it, you price it right, it's marketed well. However, the tenant turns down showings or follows the people around the house and creeps them out, makes them feel uncomfortable, or doesn't clean up the house. You're basically giving the control of your asset to someone else that doesn't have a vested interest in the sale of the property. So what ends up happening is you miss a lot of showings, you miss the buyers that probably would have bought the house, the home starts to sit, and then consumers start to think something's wrong. Consumers today expect instant gratification. And I know you're listening right now, and you do too, because you probably go to Amazon, you probably hit a button, and you probably expect that package by the next day. Consumers don't want to wait to get into a property. So if you tell them they have to wait 24 hours because that's what's in the lease, you're going to lose some consumers. And then, of course, sometimes the tenant's going to cancel the showing, or it's not going to be comfortable, or they're not going to clean up. And I can just tell you, so often we see clients selling homes that have tenants in them and taking a beating on it and saying like, oh, I don't want to give up the rent money. But what they're doing is they're losing more in value when they sell the property because they're missing exposure. The home doesn't show as well, meaning the buyer doesn't see it as desirable as maybe a cleaned up, nicely staged vacant home, or an owner-occupied home where that owner has a vested interest in the success. So what ends up happening is that you put your home on the market, you have a tenant in, and you think by keeping the tenant in there, you're keeping that money coming in, and you think that's a win. But in reality, so often we see the owner of that property losing more money in the price that they get for the home to more than offset whatever amount of cash flow they were making from the rent compared to the mortgage. So the thing that I would say to you is, if you're going to sell a property that you've been renting, get the tenant out and then sell it. It will sell for more money. It will sell faster. You will have a smoother process. It won't sit as long on the market. But selling a tenant-occupied property is just rarely a good idea. Now, there are exceptions. Exceptions would be things that are naturally going to be properties that are sold to someone that want a tenant in it. Duplexes, multifamily apartments, quadplexes, things like that. However, the majority of the time, your buying audience for a single-family home, condo, or townhome in Tampa Bay is going to be somebody that wants to buy and move into it. Or maybe buy as a second home or vacation home, and they don't want someone living in it all the time. So be cautious about selling a tenant-occupied property. It usually does not work out in the home seller's best interest at all.